Hey guys, in this video I'll be comparing the battle for the top 10 at the Olympia between Martin Fitzwater, Rafael Brandao, and Behrouz Tabani. All three of these guys are similar in competitiveness, not quite being top call-out material just yet, but having the ability to shock the crowd if someone in these spots comes in the slightest bit off. I'll be using a point system for this comparison, with each competitor getting a point corresponding to their place in each pose. The lower the points, the better the placing, so stick around till the end of the video to find out the results. Who do you think is the best out of these three, and your favorite to come out on top? Let me know in the comments down below, and let's break down the poses. The front double is a flawed pose for each competitor, however they all look very aesthetic. Martin has the best quads in terms of separation, fullness, and raw muscularity, and a great vacuum and V-taper, but lacks arm detail and wow factor. Rafael has the most beautiful structure and lines, and great overall development and fullness, however he's the least conditioned out of the three. Now Behrouz has the freakiest upper body with the best biceps and arm definition, a ridiculously impressive V-taper with wide flared lats, and top-tier condition from head to toe. He does have the worst proportions though, especially when comparing his massive upper body to his stringy, lackluster outer quad sweep. After looking at each competitor, I think that it is very clear that Rafael is winning. Sure, he doesn't have the deepest separation or the thinnest skin, however, he has the best structure and proportional development, good enough uniform condition, and zero muscular development flaws. Next, I'd say that Behrouz takes second place, since he has a far more impressive upper half compared to Martin, whereas Martin might be more balanced but lacks that pop in the arms. They could be switched, however, Rafael handily wins this pose. The front lat spread is an easy win for Rafael, since right off the bat your eyes are drawn to his near-perfect physique. There really aren't any flaws that you can see, especially when he's competing against guys who aren't significantly better than him. His midsection is incredibly small, while his lats and quads flare out nicely, his chest and arms showcase good enough condition, and his structure is ideal for this pose. The other two aren't overly impressive in this shot, however Behrouz closely matches Rafael in the upper body structure and even outmasses him in the chest and arms. He is very wide across the shoulders, has thick flared lats, and a grainy quality to his physique, which enhances his overall appearance. Now, he does fall short in the quads, which we saw in the last pose. However, his overall flow is decent enough and his muscular development is great upstairs, so he would place second. Martin is good, however he looks thin in the arms and delts compared to the other two, and his lats don't really present nearly as well as they could. The side chest is where things become very competitive since all three look phenomenal. Starting from left to right, we have Martin, who might not be the thickest in the chest, delt, or arm, but presents gnarly condition, a huge side leg, and great proportions. Next, we have Rafael, who isn't the most detailed guy up there as we know. However, the fullness of the chest, delt, and arm, and the side leg might be overwhelming for the other two. He does have great detail in the midsection, far pec, and arm, along with good enough separation in the side leg to the point where this pose looks very good. Lastly is Behrouz, who is undeniably the freakiest one in this pose. Not only does he sit all the way down to accentuate his thickness, but he also has the craziest striations in the glutes, that grainy condition across the entire upper body, and tons of dense quality muscularity. This pose definitely comes down to Rafael and Behrouz, since Martin is a bit too thin upstairs in my opinion, especially in the chest and arm. Now, although Rafael is the most aesthetically pleasing, Behrouz has quality muscle and tons of detail that draws my eye more. He has the best side leg, comparable fullness to Rafael, and tons of dense muscularity. I would go with him for the win, with Rafael in second, however I can see the argument for Rafael winning as well. The rear double is where Rafael's good enough condition begins to show its flaws, since I'd automatically relegate him to third place. He isn't out-muscling anyone in the back, arms, or delts in this pose, doesn't have the glute or hamstring detail to compete, and really isn't overly aesthetic or mind-blowingly symmetrical. Behrouz and Martin are both incredibly detailed in the glutes and hamstrings, have way better backs in my opinion, and bring a standout attribute to the table as well. Martin has, a rear double that is almost reminiscent of a young Phil Heath when it comes to the 3D pop, of the back and the deeply dug out hamstrings and the glutes. Behrouz brings pure mass and quality condition, having so much density in every part of the back, ripped glutes and hamstrings, and massive arms and delts. I think that Martin looks cleaner and more pleasing, especially when looking at the lower body. However, Behrouz wins the back and the arms handily. While it is close between the two, I would say that Behrouz is more complete, especially when looking at the size difference of their arms and the delts. Martin is great but could use more bicep peak and shoulder detail to close the gap when the margins are this close. The rear lat spread is a take-home pose for Behrouz since Rafael isn't in the same league when it comes to conditioning, and Martin isn't nearly as good as he was in the last shot. Behrouz clearly shows the best all-around development in the back, especially the lower back thickness, great conditioning everywhere, and tons of mass downstairs. Now, he might not be as wide as Rafael and doesn't dwarf Martin in width either. However, the quality and the thickness that he presents is unparalleled. Martin would probably take a solid second place since he arguably has the best lower body when it comes to the proportional development, conditioning by a large margin, and wow factor, and has a back that is above average. He has good thickness in the traps and nice low lat insertions and decent width as well relative to his frame. However, his lower back looks a bit shallow compared to Behrouz. Rafael would take third place once again since his lower body lacks the thin skin separation to really do damage and his back lacks those intricate details. The side tricep is where things return to a more competitive state since all three look really good and could each have a case for them winning. I really like what Martin does with the pushed back calf since it adds an artistic touch that we rarely see in the mandatories. However, this does detract from the side leg size and detail. His upper body is pretty standard, with the midsection being the highlight for me. However, against the other two, he needs more size in the chest and arm to really pack a punch. Rafael looks the best when it comes to the aesthetics once again, having a picture-perfect midsection with all the necessary details, a massive side leg with a good quad ham tie-in and even some glute details as well, and the best arm delt combo in my opinion. Behrouz kind of looks like an off-brand Rafael here, no hate intended, since he almost perfectly mimics the silhouette of Rafael. Now, he does lean a bit too far forward and doesn't lock the midsection in all the way. However, the condition and the fine details are really phenomenal. That said, those small flaws are problems and cost him the win in my opinion. Rafael is too perfect for Behrouz to push past with sheer size and condition, but does do enough to secure a very solid second place. The ab and thigh really isn't a great shot for anyone since all three have some sort of weakness. That said, I feel like Martin easily has the least amount of flaws in this pose, checking off the boxes when it comes to condition, muscularity, and proportions. He has the best quads all around, the best midsection when it comes to clean separation, and the way it tapers, and great lats that create a very nice silhouette. There is zero oblique spillage visible as well, great details all over his physique, and his quads are bursting at the seams with fullness. Rafael and Behrouz might be genetically better when it comes to the structure, however both are not the best in the midsections and have flaws with their legs. Rafael has a symmetrical four-pack which isn't really a problem, however his conditioning isn't out of this world and his quads really appear washed out. Behrouz is the least aesthetic one up there in this pose, having noticeable oblique spillage, dry yet unseparated and barely swept quads, and odd midsection geometry. I'd say that it comes down to preference between these two depending on what you like. You would go with Rafael for clean lines, proportions, and aesthetics, or Behrouz for condition, muscularity, and I guess freakiness as well. Personally, Martin would take the win here with Rafael in second, since I'm not a fan of the lackluster quads and odd midsection of Behrouz. The most muscular is the most subjective pose out of all 8 mandatories since they all look pretty great. Martin has the best combination of clean lines, condition, and great development, which really draws my attention to his physique. Although he might not be the biggest, I really like the deep separation you can see all over his physique, especially in the quads with the feathering and the hardness across the upper body. Rafael is in a league of his own when it comes to aesthetics though, having crazy fullness in the chest and delts, decent conditioning that gets the job done, and phenomenal shape. He doesn't have that traditional freak factor, however his statuesque nature almost takes its place. Behrouz looks right at home in this pose since his well-developed upper body nearly steals the show. His delts, chest, and arm are all very massive, conditioned, and really pop, and his midsection is small and showcases impressive detail. His quads could be bigger and more intricately separated, however, in this pose they play less of a role. Since it is so subjective, I can see this one playing out differently depending on your preference. However, I would go with Martin since he strikes the perfect balance between condition, size, and wow factor. Behrouz would probably get a close second place, since he has the crazy thickness and condition, but not necessarily that aesthetic shape. I hate to place Rafael in third, however, there is no denying that this version lacked the condition and that wow factor freakiness to win the pose. Alright guys, to tally up the points, I had Behrouz winning with 14, Rafael in second with 16, and Martin in third with 18. Overall, I think that Rafael has the greatest potential out of all three competitors if he's able to put on more size and bring drier, more detailed condition. He has the best genetics by far, shown in the incredible proportions and aesthetics that he presents. As of right now though, Behrouz is the most impressive, most complete guy, only being somewhat exposed in the frontal poses when it comes to the quad sweep and separation. His condition is top tier, and achieving that level of detail is something that not many can do. Martin, although he placed last, has a bright future in bodybuilding. He has the conditioning and the density, but needs a bit more size in certain areas to really solidify himself into the upper echelons of bodybuilding. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you thought of this video and who you had winning. If you enjoyed, a like and sub would be awesome, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.